Welcome everyone to What the Force, and welcome to our discussion of The Last Jedi, which we finished not moments ago all together in the same household, which is a rarity for us. I am Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and with me today is Liam.
Hello again.
And James.
I'm out of my house. This is scary.
You go out of your house in armor all the time.
Yes, but I'm armored.
You've got your Superman shirt on.
I would say...
The Superman logo is called a shield. You've got it right there on your chest. All I've got is Luke's speeder and an ad for Tashi Station.
Well, I figured I'd go completely anti-Star Wars for this because, I'm just contrarian like that.
So we decided to actually get together with the DVD release and watch it all together. And we realized after the fact that we probably should have just recorded our commentary because it was hilarious.
It would have been brilliant. We Mystery Science Theater 3000 the crap out of this movie.
Yes. Even though we all loved it, we'll try to make it happen for Solo, I think, when it comes out on DVD.
Yeah, we should try to do a simulcast commentary so you just know when to hit play on the movie so that you get our clever wit, which I'm sure won't be nearly as clever when we're doing it on purpose.
Some of us are clever. Some of us are less clever.
Look, stop making fun of me. I tried, okay? I'm not nearly as good as both of you.
Well, you needed to make more cave jokes. Then it would have been perfect.
There was a lot of cave jokes.
There's a lot of cave jokes.
Lots of cave jokes. All right. Let's move on. Okay, so Liam, this was the first time you've seen it since the theater, second
I saw it once in the theater and then this.
And James, this is your how many viewing?
8th or 9th, something like that. I'm not that crazy, folks. One of the benefits of actually being part of the 501st Legion is we get invited out to a lot of events, and a lot of them are really great with us, and they let us attend the showing if we can.
It's okay if you're that crazy. You're also on a Star Wars podcast.
I know, but if my wife suddenly realized that I spent $14 a pop to see a movie 8 times, she'd mock me like the rest of the world.
Hi, Vicky.
That wasn't an admission.
And this is actually the third official time that I've seen the movie. I watched part of it just because of the Praetorian Guard scene being played on the internet a million times to every sort of music in existence.
And it all works.
It's just a really beautifully choreographed scene. Okay, so let's talk about this movie. Sometimes movies don't translate well from the big screen into a smaller, justifiably okay sized screen.
That screen's taller than I am.
It's a wall.
It's a home theater. It has surround sound, so it does okay. But did it translate well for both of you?
Yeah, it was a great movie. A lot of the details are not lost coming down. For me, I enjoyed it. Actually, you got a really good screen, so it really did a good translation.
This was a good opportunity to see it.
Yeah, I think it definitely benefited from the big screen, big sound in the theater. Like it was a visual epic, but it had a solid enough story to it, and it was a good enough movie on its own merits that on a smaller screen, it still maintained that quality.
And I look forward to even watching it again and again on my iPad, which is typically how I watch any of the Star Wars movies, is just kind of, while I'm doing dishes or whatever, catching up and watch it. I've seen TFA, I feel like 20 times because it's the one I have on my iPad, so I catch up on that. I think it'll still work. I think the visuals are strong. There's a lot of contrast with the light and the dark and the red. And we talked a lot about the color red while we were watching the movie, mainly inappropriately, but that's fine.
Well, and if you're going to watch it and you've got a decent set of headphones or something that you're listening to it, because visually it was a very beautiful movie, but more so, I think they did such a great job on the sound and the music and
the mix.
Basically all of the audio was brilliant and borderline perfect.
Yeah, it felt like the environment was real, and they did do this really great The Force of Sound documentary on the Foley and the sound mixing and sound design of The Last Jedi that was on ABC, and you can actually watch it online. It was really, really great. They really deep dive into even just building a sound design around the digital characters. And because they literally have nothing to work with already, they have no They have no substance, and so you have to build all the substance. Let's talk a little bit about portrayal, I think, on screen, because the characters themselves and the acting, it really sells this movie, I think, in a lot of ways. We see, I mean, do you want to start with the top stories first, which is like the primary three: Luke, Kylo Ren, and Rey?
Mm-hmm.
Want to talk about them first?
Sure.
Okay, well, we'll talk about Luke. I mentioned him first. Mark Hamill reprises his role as Luke Skywalker because he had no lines in the TFA.
I loved there was a couple of interviews that he had after TFA came out where they would ask him a question, then he would just stand there and glare at them for like a minute. Sorry, I was just in the character. I'm so method.
Because he likes to troll us.
He likes to mess with people.
And mess with people. What did you think of Mark Hamill's performance in this movie?
First time I watched it, it took me by surprise. I mean, there was so much build up between the movies. It's 3 years of what's gonna happen, and he's this Jedi. He's off exploring the depths of the Force at this strange Jedi temple planet to try to figure it out, and it's this amazing. No, he ran off, hid. She gives him back this. She gives him his father's sword, this antique. Gone.
Yeah, over the shoulder.
It diffused the situation of such a build-up in a way that it, like, first time I saw it, I was stunned and I laughed. But I'm like, I after the movie, I was like, I don't know if I liked it because it was not what I was expecting. I mean, Luke was supposed to be the great Skywalker bloodline.
But like we discussed while watching the movie, he was following the true Jedi Master code of try, fail, run and hide.
Yeah, it was awesome the way they did it, and I like the fact that it's a huge amount of character growth to be able to fail miserably from being the god of the rebellion.
Yeah, and it's more what I always like. You hear a lot of. I'm gonna go into the internet for a little bit, but you hear a lot of complaints like, "I wanted Luke Skywalker to be the best Jedi ever. Why wasn't he the best Jedi ever?" Well,
hashtag not my Luke.
Unfortunately, that is really boring and doesn't actually show 30 years of baggage. And there's always large regrets that people have throughout their lives. And we never actually got to see, except for maybe the burning of the homestead on Tatooine, any of Luke's regrets throughout his life. Losing his hand. I mean, he resolves it with his dad later, but we never actually got to see Luke fail in the original trilogy in a large way, other than the mistake to go rescue his friends, which he ended up rescuing his friends. So, yeah. I mean, it ended up working out okay for him. We now know Luke was capable of failure, thus still human.
Well, and a lot of the fanboys that were upset that they portrayed Luke as, well, kind of emotionally fragile and, not this towering hero. He was more kind of whiny and kind of selfish, and like, that's not the real Luke. Go back and watch the original trilogy. He is whiny and he is self-centered, and he's more like Kylo in the original trilogy than like how Luke was in this one. And people that grow up kind of whiny and forced into a big situation that then they suddenly, oh, I'm a hero. Oh, now I failed again. Those are going to turn into bitter, sarcastic old men.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
so that was 100% hashtag my Luke.
Well, this is very true. I mean, he screwed it up massively. He built this temple. He started the Jedi religion going again. Mm-hmm. He had students galore. And his one mistake was the fact that he thought he could cut out the little dark seed that was growing.
Right.
He's like, and that backfired massively on him.
He didn't continue on the things that he had fought Obi-Wan and Yoda against, which was love and maintaining relationships and care and like the selflessness of what the Jedi preached. He fought Obi-Wan and Yoda and was successful in turning his father back from the dark side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Luke himself, to your point, whiny, etc.
Until he's called upon to be the hero.
Yeah. And you think about people's base personality, like who they are when they're under stress, who they become when they haven't eaten in time. You know, who are they when they haven't had enough sleep? You think about that, and yeah, that's Luke. He knows what he has to teach, which is that the Jedi Order that he tried to create wasn't correct. And he's actually got a third lesson that ends up getting cut, I think, due to time, right?
Which was a big, just hanging gap.
Like, I've got three lessons, but I'm going to teach you 2 of them.
But I will give it this: the way they cut it, that one part was very true to the original trilogy. She left her training early to go
go and do her confrontation, which she felt like needed to be in ways like Luke's.
If I don't do this now, this is the point where I stand a chance of changing the fates.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or I have to leave right now to go rescue my friends.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I felt like that was really well done in that, like, his version of his truth was through this whiny, yes, but also curmudgeonly with age filter to give him this weird and twisted view of what he was actually trying to teach, which is the Jedi don't own the light and
don't drink your own Kool-Aid.
Don't drink your own Kool-Aid.
Think about it. That was why the original Jedi, they turned into this enormous, and the problem was they started to believe in that the Jedi are the only way. Everything else is, and then if you actually looked at the details, wow, just like Luke, they screwed up a lot of stuff, which led. They overlooked this one tiny little man who basically orchestrated the entire fall of the Galactic Senate, which had thousands of generations.
Yeah, the real failing of the Jedi is hubris.
Yeah.
When they get successful enough, they start to believe their own hype, and then they fail, and then they run and hide.
Yeah, it's like they were missing the humble part of what they were trying to represent within the universe. And that was, accentuated with Palpatine causing the war and asking them to be the generals.
Well,
right.
If you take a look back, we'll switch to actual movie in Rogue One, the Jedi temples with those great big, there's absolutely nothing humble about having a 40-foot tall representation of your own religion.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's nothing humble about that. That's a case of look at me, I'm big and I'm proud.
Yeah. You can pull it forward.
All
Yay.
right.
Now you can sit nice.
Yay.
Yay, with the slouch. Do stormtroopers slouch?
No, you stand absolutely no chance of being able to slouch in that armor. It does not let you.
Plus, if you slouch, then you're a little short for a stormtrooper.
That's also true, yeah. Okay, fine. Luke, I think they did him really well. I also think that the force back scenes, I don't know what they did with his eyes. His eyes looked crazy.
Well, in Kylo's flashback, Luke looks like the most evil character in the entire movie.
From his perspective.
Oh,
right?
he's like that flash of Bilbo when he sees the One Ring. And
well, he's like 16. He's maybe supposed to be 16, 15 in that scene.
Well, so this is something that I've been trying to think about as well. So Bloodline is set 5 years before Force Awakens. And she has lost contact with Luke and her son. He's like 25, 24.
Waking up at 2:00 in the morning and finding your uncle, your great mentor, the person who's supposed to be teaching you. Yeah, standing over you with a sword or a gun. Using today's. I'm sorry, but you're going to freak out no matter what. It's not real. It's how he saw that moment.
Yeah, he woke up and he saw his uncle as a monster.
Yeah.
So when he's remembering it, he's remembering Luke as a monster. But they did such a great job of, it was obviously Mark Hamill. It wasn't, they didn't have Palpatine makeup on him or anything like that. It was just super evil looking Luke.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then they used exactly the same stuff from Luke's perspective where he was...
practically glowing.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like, I'm innocent in this.
Well, you'll actually notice when he did that one scene where he suddenly stopped because there was a shadow. His face went a little dark, almost the monster, because he realized that moment where he was about to become the dark side.
The third vision version of it, right?
Yeah.
That was good. What do we think of Kylo's calligraphy set? That's the most important thing in here. He practices calligraphy.
Okay.
Well, they have a lot of downtime in the temple. He was writing letters home to mom. There you go.
Oh, yeah, I know. He does seem like a mama's boy. He just chooses not to kill her.
Maybe Hugs was his pen pal.
Maybe, hey? Maybe they were pen pals from a long time ago.
Yeah, he'd sign them XX and Hugs would sign them back OO.
So he was the kisses.
I thought that was Hugs' dad.
Okay, so anything else about Luke that you guys want to talk about?
I'll go with this one. At the very end, it's how they went out with the Twin Sons theme, and it was very soft, gentle, and it was like, it made a nice bookend, the Luke Skywalker story. It started out with that, and ended with that, and he went out. He was at peace when he left Tatooine because he knew what he had to do, and he had a journey ahead of him. And he was at peace at the end because he knew the journey was going to be continuing without him.
And he did what he could in that moment to actually set it up for success.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. I got shivers. You said you got really emotional.
I got misty the first time I saw that because it was just beautiful musical piece, and it was like, oh, die. This is somebody, he's been part of my life for 40 years. I have friends that haven't been around that long.
Yeah.
The entire room around me.
I really hope he comes back as a Force ghost, or he comes and trolls Kylo in the next movie.
Oh, that'd be great if his Force ghost just follows Kylo around the entire movie.
Ooh.
I'm not touching your nose. I'm not touching your nose. I'm not touching your nose.
You can't touch me. Woohoo.
Especially if no one else can see him.
Yeah, exactly. Kylo would be driven bananas.
That's not a long trip.
Hugs and keeps it. Who are you talking to?
Well, and if the Force connection with Rey still happens, you'd be like talking to people that aren't there like all the time. It's like, the Supreme Leader is having one of his moments.
He's having a moment.
He's having a moment.
So it wouldn't be that different from, Force Awakens when he goes completely...
Yeah.
He spazzes out on the console and the two stormtroopers walk in, turn around, walk right back out.
He only spazzed out on his helmet
And
this
Hux
movie.
a couple times.
And Hux.
Yeah, when he slams and he gets the side of the ship at the end.
But
there.
I mean, like, Vader would freaking kill people in the original trilogy. He's just kind of maiming them slightly, hurting them a little bit.
Well, it's because he's not a beast. He's a spaz.
Yes.
But Vader also did it strategically. I mean, Hux is, despite the fact that he's now Supreme Leader, Hux is still the top man in the military.
Yeah, he's in charge of the whole infrastructure.
How and why, I'm not entirely sure because his tactical genius is ever present. But this is that one person where if you take him out, who's going to take his place?
Well,
And it's not so much oh my goodness, who will take this great place? It's a matter of, well, you kind of know this devil already, and you can beat the dog down long enough.
But like you're saying with his tactical genius, if they were to take out Hux, Imperial military would get stronger as a result. Most likely.
Yeah, we'll go back to this one. Vader only took out people who were incompetent or tried to stand up against him, but he was respectful for the chain of command. Grand Moff Tarkin.
Oh, slapped him down like a dog.
Well, they were like kind of on equal footing in the Emperor's eyes. So that's sort of why Vader was outside of the military, and same with Kylo. I just don't see Kylo being comfortable with giving a general high-level order and not being a foot soldier. Like we saw that at the end of the movie. We've drifted into Kylo. Did you want to say anything about Luke before?
I just, with all the hate that was going around in the internet about it, I really liked this portrayal of Luke.
Yeah.
I thought it was a true portrayal of how that Luke would have grown up.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that Luke as a character is grumpy as hell all the way through it, just looking deeper at it and like looking at the eyes and that, you could tell that Mark Hamill was having a blast being this curmudgeonly old man. That joy kind of comes through despite being a miserable character, that he was so much fun to watch having so much fun.
I think he really embodied it, and he seemed grumpy. He seemed that old man in the cottage that, like,
You had to do a 2-hour walk every day for that, for the stuff on Octo. I mean, seriously, I'd be pretty grumpy if I had to do that walk.
Yeah. Well, plus he was very sparing with the amount of dialogue that he had, which was more of a writing choice than a performance choice, but it gave his words that little bit of extra gravitas because he wasn't
communicative.
He didn't go on and on. So his words had more meaning because he was choosing them to be the most effective words possible.
I think the most he talks is with Yoda in that one
Yeah.
scene.
Well, it's also, I mean, a lot of actors couldn't do this, but Mark Hamill is very, very expressive with the face. So a lot of these, like the one-liners, he'll do that and then just give a look of, nobody can see this, but I'm giving the dad look.
Yeah, he did the uncle dad look really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
it's a close family, folks.
Having spent so much time working as a voice actor too, just with a little bit of dialogue, he can make a lot happen. I mean, this is the Joker.
Yeah.
This is the real Joker.
I don't know. I like Heath Ledger. He was good.
I didn't mind any of the. I even didn't mind the Jared Leto Joker. But when I'm reading a comic book,
You hear
it's the Mark
yeah.
Hamill voice in the Joker because
Yeah.
that's the Joker.
Yeah, he's got a lot of range with his voice, and there was a lot of quiet whispers, frustration that came very well through in his voice. And he got to be a voice actor in this as well with that little
as,
alien dude.
Dabusque.
Oh, you looked it up. Thank you.
I've got it in front of me, actually. I've got the IMDb open so that I can feel like a real fan.
You can be our fact checker. Thank you, Liam.
Yay! I'm helping.
I appreciated that in his weird, twisted, depressed view, he felt like cutting himself off from the Force, hiding on an island was the best thing for the universe. Like, get on without me, pretend I don't exist. But instead, because there was a mystery around his disappearance, it caused more anxiety, more stress, more wanting to find him and resolve that open point. Whereas now that he's sacrificed himself, he's inspired and it can become whatever it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Weird religion of the Force, belief in the Force.
Yeah. So
let's actually talk about Rey next, because their relationship is actually quite interesting. When she comes to the island, he effectively just tries to ignore her.
Yeah, you're here. Go away.
Yes, the cute, chipper young student shows up with the old curmudgeon who just wants to be left alone.
Yeah, it was very much that trope, right? Yeah.
I like the fact, kind of the way they did it. If you actually, anybody who's watched I Am Legend, this is the one scene where the family shows up and they meet up with Will Smith and they're like, you've been alone for a long time, haven't you? And that was sort of the, he's been talking to the fish ladies, but he's definitely been spending a lot of time by himself on that island. The cheese is kind of coming off the cracker here, folks.
Yeah, I mean, the milk scene, I think, shows that the most, where he milks the Thala sirens. So he's milking the Thala siren, and they obviously needed to be milked.
I don't know, that it really did not sound like it enjoyed that experience, because he milks it and it's like, how we know.
How we know. I'm just gonna say to all the ladies in the audience that have had children, those sirens had mastitis. Just saying, as somebody who has experienced that. Anyways, so no, he's crazy. Like, he does it and he drinks the milk right in front of her. He's got a full on
He's got it in his
room
beard.
temperature milk.
Green milk mustache. Looks at her like, what?
You want some?
Want some?
He didn't even offer any, though. He could have been like, I'm gross, here, and just held up the bottle to her so that she could react to it. But he just sort of gives her a look and then carries on with his day.
Oh, no, sorry, that was the wrong inflection. He's like, what? You wanted some?
Yeah. goes fishing.
Like, with his absurdly long stick.
And it had a little tiny fish as like bait on the end, and then he catches the big fish.
By spearing it through the head with a...
with an absurdly long stick. That was like a 3-story stick.
Rey herself, though, was she much changed in the start from The Force Awakens? I mean, it was like a few days later. Was she much changed, do you think?
No.
I didn't feel that Rey had a whole lot of character growth despite going through this learning and
it was more of she had a huge amount of growth in The Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. I think this was more of a cementing who she became.
Well, and at the end of Force Awakens, when people were talking about character arcs and what we're expecting in this trilogy, I was saying, yeah, Rey, I think, she's not done her hero's journey by any means, but her character is basically grown to where it's going to be. She's going to learn to master the Force, but it's not going to change her that much. I was always saying that if you want to watch for a big character arc, to watch Kylo. Mm-hmm. Because they set him up in Force Awakens as so impulsive and so childish and so reactive to everything around him.
So not much changed.
I think he grew a lot. He started to become a little bit more aware of sort of the bigger picture, which you see from him going against Snoke. Yeah. Because he was 100%. He was on board with Snoke. He was on board with everything. He was kneeling before his master. And in this one, I think the Force time interactions affected him more than they affected Rey. And he's had more development and he's had his eyes opened a little bit more than she has from what I've seen.
Yeah, I agree with you in that Rian Johnson has said Rey and Kylo are two halves of the same protagonist in the sequel trilogy.
So it kind of fits with that
imagery that we see in the cave
where Luke has his altar. There's the pond with that. Yeah, that kind of fits that.
With the split yogi.
Yeah.
And and they push that yin yang symbolism a lot. Like they had the yin yang necklaces, they had the split yogi in the pool. There was another
BB-8 and BB-9E.
Yeah, that's the reference I was going to make next, but you beat me to it.
I mean, even down to, obviously Kylo's wearing black, but Rey's wearing a lighter color. Things
tans.
like that. Tans.
But she's a bit more of a, I don't know, using the term, and all, she's kind of a gray Jedi.
Yeah, she was wearing some grays.
Yeah, she's not a true goody-goody. I mean, she'll do what it takes to win the fight.
Well, and, the dark called out to her, and she went right to it.
Yeah.
Right to it.
And then nothing happened.
Right to that cave.
Right to that cave.
The sphincter cave.
The sphincter of evil.
Different cave.
I think Rey is becoming. She's not there yet, but in the first movie, she was just too busy doing. Mm-hmm. She was too busy. Like society, she had no expectations. It was a matter of, am I going to get a half portion or a quarter portion today?
But by the start of this movie, she doesn't know what she's supposed to be doing.
Well, she's supposed to use the Force to mind control and lift rocks and things.
No, but she says to Luke, she's like, I have this thing inside of me, and people expect me to be something, but I'm not, and I don't know how to get there.
Sorry, you just gave me kind of a missing piece to something. One of the scenes I really did not like in the movie, it's drawn out a bit too long, but it's when she goes into the cave, the dark side. And while she's down there, is that scene when suddenly they're doing that, the weird snapping, and it's going back and forth all the way up to those two shapes that become one. Well, if you think about it, that the thing she really wanted in the first movie was her parents. Mm-hmm. And then you do this one scene where she's suddenly standing there, and it clears up, and then it's the other side of the smoke the cloudy rock is her. Who am I supposed to be?
Yourself.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
Be who you are.
The whole gray Jedi thing with her, those two shadows, one of them is strikingly darker than the other.
Yeah.
And then they combine into her. But I'm thinking back on it while you were answering that, and I'm not sure if because she's had a very rudimentary education in the Force and all of that leading up to this, and then pretty rudimentary with Luke as well. It didn't seem like there was a whole lot of explanation about light versus dark in it. He was just explaining the Force as a whole.
Yeah.
So I think where that's coming in is she's not necessarily going to go to the light side or to the dark side. She's going basically right down the center of the Force.
I actually don't agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't. No, I don't. Because there's only in the Force, there is the living Force and the cosmic Force. Oh my God, I know. But no. But this is big because they've brought it up so much recently in Rebels and in back to episode 1 with Qui-Gon Jinn talking about the Force. Mm-hmm. And in the novel itself, they mention it all over the place. And Luke himself showing her it's death and light, and it's the balance. And the way that you use the Force, or the way that you choose to connect to the Force in a selfless way or a selfish way, is the quote unquote light or the dark. And although we have seen examples in Rebels of the one in the middle,
the
Bendu. You're confused, Liam. It's cool.
Well, that's the concept of the gray Jedi, like Liam was talking about. There is really, in simpler terms for people who aren't, there's the Sith, who are the dark side, and the Jedi, who are the light side. Mm-hmm. But those are really just religions. They're just a title on these things. And it's sort of how you use the Force and what you want to do with the Force. This is my take on it. So I sort of agree with him, and I agree with you. I'm playing middleman here, folks. Don't hurt me.
No, you
can be the gray Jedi of the podcast.
Well, that's exactly it.
You're the one that's wearing red. I'm wearing black. I'm wearing black.
Well, I mean, we'll go back to episode 1 with Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon was more or less a gray Jedi. That's one of the reasons why he was never on the council.
I just don't like that term. I think it's
Well, no, it's a
silly.
case of his goal is to be, he is in the gray area. His goal is truly the Jedi. He wants to do what's the best for the universe. How he goes about it, he doesn't always follow all of the rules of the Jedi. He'll occasionally
he's
fudge.
he's a religious person without religion. But
Yeah.
that's a different thing than saying, "Oh, they're in the middle. They're gray." You know, it's not that. It is the understanding the balance of the tension between death and life.
But when he's saying, what do you see? She's saying warmth and cold, life and death, all that. She's not looking them at them as opposing forces. She's looking at them as a circle and as one whole. And
I just don't like the term.
she's
gray.
she's a beige Jedi.
But
there's the light and there's the dark, and there is a whole lot of gray in between that. So it's not that she's right dead center between the two.
Yeah.
It's a spectrum that in years and centuries and in years past and over the centuries with the Jedi and the Sith going up against each other, they're the extremists.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like if you're watching any political news out of the United States, you've got the Democrats who are the caricature hippie flower children all of a sudden, and then you've got the Republicans who are the oil barons who are stepping on orphans and that. You've got the Jedi and the Sith right there, but 99.9% of the rest of that country is along the spectrum in between where normal humans would live.
But I think that what Lucas and the story group in this narrative they're trying to say is that it's not gray, in that if you are trying to do what the universe wills you to do, it is balance and not gray. And that is the Jedi, and that is the Jedi in their ultimate form.
I think that's being really picky about one word that means the exact same thing on both sides of the argument.
Well, that's it. He's using gray to be more of a how you go about doing it.
Yeah.
You're using gray as in you're not light and you're not dark. That seems to be the split on that.
And I think that's because of the gamification of Star Wars, in that when you played KOTOR, to get into the middle, you had to literally kill puppies a little bit.
Well, yeah, you have to do the caricature good and the caricature evil.
Whereas I agree with you in that, like, it's going to be somewhere where it's accepting and understanding the darkness that lives with you and not ignoring it. It's more like how to make sure that darkness doesn't.
Well, then we'll get into the one character that I have in mind. Picture at the end of episode 3, Mace Windu. He was very much a rah-rah Jedi. And now I'm going to go do the darkest thing I can imagine and kill somebody in cold blood.
Because what must be done.
Yeah, that's definitely not a Jedi maneuver.
No.
Yeah. Wow, we really got away from...
Well, now we're talking about the prequels.
Yeah.
But
Liam is grinding his teeth.
I really believe that Rey is close to center. Not right dead center. And I think in 9... Like the groundwork was laid in the last 2/3 of this one, but I think in 9 she is going to drag Kylo more into the center. They're going to be basically a lawful neutral, chaotic neutral.
And I mean, it's a case of what she's like. That is the thing Luke did do with the second lesson. The Jedi got wrapped up in their own, so he didn't teach her any of the Jedi laws. Maybe that was on purpose.
But she has the books.
Well, but that's some of the original stuff, not the way the Jedi were near the end. Maybe it was more pure in the beginning, before the Sith War, before they wiped out all evil in the galaxy. Air quotes, folks. Air quotes.
And he wouldn't know because he kind of confessed that he never actually read them.
He skimmed them.
I skimmed them, but they're so boring.
Page turners, they were not. I mean, who can read on paper nowadays? I mean, in the Star Wars universe, paper doesn't exist, right? Like it would be very difficult to actually read on paper. If you're like, what is this? I feel like I'm going to crumble this.
How did this cut me?
Ouch.
Somebody needs to file down the edge of this paper.
So what I was referring to before is that, like, in the beginning of the movie, she feels very lost, and she is primarily looking for truth, and the truth is not what she is expecting to find. The truth is that it's all within her to find her answer and to become who she's going to become on her own. And that is very much away from the hero's journey and more subscribes to the heroine's journey, which I don't need to go into now, but it's just a different narrative tool. And it's used more in female-driven type stories.
So if we get onto the topic of the internet, pretty much what they're claiming the Star Wars has become.
I would argue against that. I know it's like we were discussing before we watched the movie, that's something of a knee-jerk reaction that the angry internet is having, that, oh, Star Wars is all about female characters now. But there was really no point in this one or in Rogue One where the main character being female mattered. You could take that, you could take Rey out and replace her with a guy with a male name like Rey, and I don't think it would really change the narrative any. You'd have to change Finn to a girl so that people wouldn't get all upset.
Well,
but,
and like the Kylo hand touching scene would take on a whole new
oh,
meaning.
Kylo goes both ways. If there was 3 ways, he'd go that way. I mean, Kylo, the inside of all that black that he wears is pure rainbows.
Well,
You're probably going to have to edit that out.
You obviously didn't see the interview with John Boyega. He and
Oscar Isaac. Yeah,
Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, so it was John Boyega and Oscar Isaacs were in an interview, and they were talking about their first interactions between Finn and Poe, and they're like, "Oh, I was trying to play it like it was coming on to you," and Oscar was like, "Oh, so was I. We're good." Because that was one of the big things on the internet. People were like, oh, that's a little bit too the gay.
Well,
but
Oscar Isaac bites his lower lip when they see
Yum.
Honestly, the fact that the main characters in the current Star Wars arcs are female, other than the big deal that people on the internet are making about it, I don't think they've made a big deal about it in the movies. That there wasn't anything.
It's the strongest characters in this, first movie. If we go back to the 77 mentality, I'm sorry, but the woman in that movie was Luke. I'm sorry, he was a whiny little girl from the farmlands. Please don't hurt me, internet. I'm just merely sitting my mind back that. And Leia.
But Leia was the man.
Yeah, she was the man. She was in charge. The moment she came on screen, she took over. That was something revolutionary back then. So this is not new, folks.
I mean, Luke grew throughout the movie, and that was what was important about it. But I would argue that, to your point, strong characters are strong no matter what.
Exactly.
You know? And I think that representation is very important for a franchise, and narratively speaking, that you actually get more stories from different perspectives, so more people can see themselves within the wars.
I mean, if I wanted to take the side of the angry internet, it would have been nice to see a strong male character in this movie, because there really wasn't any.
No,
you've got Luke, who has turned into a grubby, angry old bastard. You've got Kylo. You've got Finn, who's trying to run away pretty much right up until the end, when he finally runs toward. You've got Poe, who is getting slapped down. The more awesome he does, he gets slapped out. Leia shoots him. I mean, Snoke, built up. We're finally going to find out about this. Oh, wait, no. Hugs was awesome when he gets face planted right at the beginning of it. No man in this movie comes out looking good.
I mean, even Kylo kind of feels sad and puppy-like at the end.
Well, and he was on his way to redemption. It's like, oh, this is going to be awesome. You can rule the universe with me now. No,
it's the one line.
Yes.
Grandpa taught him in his visions. Grandpa taught him that line. He's like, it's got to work.
Like even Yoda. Finally showing up in the middle of a thunderstorm, and then lightning strikes a tree. He's like, yeah, I take credit for that. I do. No.
Oh, yeah, failure. Learn about failure, Luke.
Yeah. There was no good male character in this.
Luke, through his story and change in character, becomes very strong. Finn, by the end, becomes very strong. Poe, by the end, learns what leadership is actually about. I mean, it's about character growth. It's not about being perfect from the beginning.
Finn also learned not to turn his back on Rose because, well,
she'll mess up his plans.
But despite being able to make that argument, it's not something that affected my enjoyment of the movie.
Yeah.
Because There isn't really any focus within the film on gender politics or anything like that. It's just a bunch of good characters doing awesome stuff in space.
But there's no perfect characters in the movie to begin with, male or female.
I don't know. What about, what's her name?
The one with the nose?
Toucan Sam.
Well,
that actress played that nose. I do want to talk about how
this was a very realistic movie.
Oh,
This was something we were talking
about during the whole movie.
It wasn't a gap ad.
I have a lot of female friends in the 501st, and most of them, that one thing they were commenting was the fact that these are real-looking people in this movie. Like Liam just said, it's not a gap ad. These are not Hollywood real-looking people. These are people with imperfections.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Daisy Ridley is the prettiest one of them all, and she even looks normal.
Yeah, and they
I don't know, Adam Driver. Or Oscar Isaac is probably the prettiest person in this movie, other than getting ready to evacuate to the planet at the end, and they're loading up the transports. There's this pilot that walks down the ramp who has the most glorious blonde hair. That's just, he practically moves in slow motion.
Yeah.
Who the hell is that guy? He's getting a movie.
You kept on pointing him out too.
Yeah, because then he was in the background again, just being like...
And there's the other thing, too, that they really just spent a lot of time in this movie was the fact that little dirty effects, not bad effects, things like after the throne room fight scene, one of the best fight scenes. You both mentioned this, and it's a case of everybody was hot, sweaty, hair was mussed up.
Yeah.
People were breathing hard after the big fight. And, the set was burning around them with little flakes of, charcoal falling. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful scenery.
Yeah, they made it so ugly that it was beautiful. It was like a Shar-Pei.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's how I got my wife.
Sorry, what?
That's how I got my wife. I'm so ugly that I looped around.
Oh, okay.
Good
Not commenting about her.
Yeah, they looked like they'd been through it.
Yeah.
And when you look at the rebels,
when they get to the planet, they look like they just, got out of there by the skin of their teeth, and they're the one of 4 ships that landed.
Yeah, they're haggard. They are beaten down, and going into it, they're not a group of beautiful people, but
they even made Hux look more gaunt in this movie
and pasty. He's just
Hux, the
he's just
pasty looking guy.
white-faced.
HUX.
Yes, Hux, the pasty looking guy. Yeah, no, they made him look almost, I would say, vampiric in a way. Like he looked gaunt and he
sick
looked
almost,
sick, like anemic, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was definitely something about the costuming. The only point where any character looks like they've been gussied up is Rey on her way to go see Kylo. She's totally got mascara on and lipstick. I don't know what they did with the makeup, but
well, she had changed her hair.
She changed her hair.
She'd gotten new boots.
She got her best friend to drop her off at her boyfriend's house.
In a
coffin. So weird.
Because he's goth. She was playing to his strengths.
Oh, no, he's totally that emo Kylo Ren. He can't smile because he's so sad on the inside.
Well, his mommy just got blown out of an airlock that his co-pilot made.
Did you have to bring that up?
Yes, I did.
Maybe he was worried that if he was the one to shoot her, he'd have snapped off his really flimsy, cheap-looking triggers.
I want to talk about Kylo, and then I want to talk about like the cool fight scenes, because I think that those two things need to be said about this movie. Okay, so Kylo, what did you guys think of him in this movie?
I like Kylo Ren. I like him as a character. I make fun of him, but I make fun of my friends too.
Yeah, no, I love his journey.
I think he's a great character. Adam Driver is crushing it in this role.
Yeah.
He speaks very level and very flat, but there is so much emotion and so much inflection. When he's just talking, it's usually he's channeling his inner Harrison Ford because I'm angry and Kylo and emo. But
he
sounds
so like him. He does these things that are like him.
He's playing Harrison Ford's son, so he's channeling as much of it as he can. And just like
vibe I've been getting is it's almost a must not lose my temper. He's got inner rage issues happening, and it's always a matter of I need to maintain control. Excuse me, I'm going to go over to this console for a minute.
Well, even when the Force time things are going on, the one where she pops in on him getting changed, that got a lot of hate on the internet. I loved that scene. I thought that was so funny when you see her first and you hear the weird the sound getting sucked in.
Yeah.
So you know what's happening, and she's like, I'd rather not do this right now. And despite speaking almost perfectly level, you can hear that there's just this awe in his voice because I'd rather not do this now too.
That's actually the few moments where you see I looked at it like each one of those was sort of the real Kylo.
It was very humanizing for him.
Yeah, and it's a case of like the first time it was like, what the hell's happening? And he's confused. This is not something Kylo ever has been. At least that I've seen in the episodes. He's like, this is unusual. What the how are you? What?
Well, and showing him with his shirt off and showing that enormous scar running from his face down onto his chest and where he got nailed on the other shoulder. Like he's been through it. He's got some marks. It's the first time we really see him being vulnerable and
human too.
Yeah, it brings him down to a level where he and Rey can finally actually connect, which was exactly how it was planned, because those moments were cherry picked to have the greatest effect.
Yeah,
but it did a lot for, despite the character not really doing anything to make it happen, it did more than possibly anything else for that character's growth.
I would say there's a couple of scenes as a lady in the audience that I felt were specifically built for me. and this is one of them, in that I appreciated the fact that you got to see, rather than the woman in this situation, the man in a vulnerable state.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Right? And that's a big shift from the bikini in Return of the Jedi that his mom wore, that she probably still has. Just saying.
Oh, which member of that family do you think has it? Number 9. It's going to be forced to, I'd rather not do this right now. Please don't do this right now. Let me get a shawl or something.
A cowl.
A cowl.
Are you saying that Kylo Ren has the bikini?
I'm not saying it. I'm implying it. That's classier.
I need that fan art. It wouldn't work with his nip.
With his enormous pecs.
He's got
bigger. If his pecs were any bigger, Luke would have force projected himself in there and milked them.
There was a cartoon for that, by the way.
Of course there was.
And I mean, seriously, he's got bigger boobs than his mom.
He is just so built. And yeah.
Adam Driver's a Marine.
No, I know.
So,
I know.
And another thing that we were talking about before about his weird build and his high pants is he's got big chest, big arms, which, you're used to seeing with men on screen, but then his body is cylindrical. It's not a cone like most guys in movies where they're 76-inch chest and 13-inch waist.
Yeah,
he's built like somebody who he's built this physique in order to go and use it to do stuff.
Yeah,
like how a Marine would.
Yeah, and you can actually it's believable that he was out there with stormtroopers, fighting battles. Like, it's believable that he was actually used as a weapon within the First Order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and he's always referenced as being this skinny little emo kid, but he's really not. He's quite thick to the body, but he's well muscled.
Black is slimming.
Well, and he always wears belts.
Well, it's a Kevin Smith once said, black and layers, folks, and he's got both those happening.
Yes, he does. Yeah, it's so funny because they show him in when the SNL skit did with the undercover boss and Kylo Ren behind the scenes, when he was in as Matt the radar technician because of the orange. I was like, he is built.
He's a big dude.
He is not skinny, but in his Kylo Ren costume, just how it looked I think it was because the cowl was so big.
Well, and it flares on the shoulders quite a bit. I think specifically to try to narrow his waist and give him more of that leading man build. But
they walked away from that and made him look more Vader. Mm-hmm. Just in look, but in personality, he was a sad puppy dog.
Well,
he looked on the edge of tears half the movie, didn't he?
The movie starts minutes after Force Awakens. Mm-hmm. They basically get back. So Kylo has just finished stabbing his dad.
Yeah.
Getting shot with a bowcaster, which they'd shown blowing stormtroopers into the next scene.
Yep. And, I mean, he just finished getting, he's the big bad. He just finished getting his, butt handed to him by a little girl with the first time she picked up her glow rod. She just, just got him sent to Sarber.
He didn't seem upset about that. Like when I was reading speculation about The Last Jedi, they were like, "Oh, Kylo Ren's gonna go in there and bust her up because he's so upset about the embarrassment of." And I'm like, what sort of male fantasy is the internet like going through?
I
where
will
they
fully admit this as you know, anytime I've ever I'll go back to drank my own Kool-Aid and started to believe my own hype. When reality comes knocking at the door, I'm just gonna go over to the corner and sulk for a few minutes.
Right. Did you think that was going to happen, that he would get like super pissed and like go after her?
No, I was pretty sure this was going to be, you know, the equivalent of him getting kicked in the junk.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to take a little bit of time to recover, but the fact that Snoke keeps pushing him forward and pushing him really did do a lot for the character, which is also like, we'll fast forward to the end, which kind of is his hero's journey when he's like, you know what, I'm done with you and I've got an opportunity and I'm going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I loved when Snoke says that he was the one that like connected their minds at first, and Kylo looks pissed off. Like he's like, this was special. This was my thing. You've been listening in all my phone calls, Dad?
Well, yeah, it's not so much that he looks pissed off. He looks violated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It always makes me question what kind of relationship Snoke and him had. Like from a
I'm
from a
thinking
young
leather
age.
and ball gags.
Well, no,
That's
just
why he has the bikini.
I mean, certainly he's an abusive mentor, right? Like he's not a nice mentor. He gives him a little like carrot and a lot of stick. It seems like
he's planting the seeds of the dark side. You can have whatever you want. Just take it. Nobody as powerful as you are. You can just go out there and stop. Well, I mean, this is the guy who did stop a blaster bolt midair.
Right.
He was drinking his own Kool-Aid. And then he got kneecapped, and I think that's what Snoke. Okay, now we got something. We're gonna feed the pain. Let's
feed the pain, feed the anger, right?
Yeah, let's stoke this fire, folks. Oh, look, he's now opened himself up. Hey, guess what?
Hey.
I've been eavesdropping on your conversations there, son. You know those dirty little.
So gross. I mean, they were basically having like intimate phone conversations /
Sexting.
yes. I know, right? Like, I mean, I'm not crazy, right? Like, that is what was happening. They were intimate. They were building some sort of crazy relationship.
Very much so.
Okay.
And I'd seen an interview with Ryan shortly after the movie came out, where people are talking about the Force time thing and why did you choose to go that way? And he was saying he needed Kylo and Rey to have this relationship built up, but he needed to have it happen in a way where they couldn't just immediately start fighting each other because then it wouldn't work. So having them in this, basically they're FaceTiming with each other, but they don't have a choice in it.
Yeah. It's forced FaceTime.
So the first time, I mean, she shoots a hole in the side of her hut, and he jumps back, and they're getting ready to fight before they realize they can't.
Yeah.
But we're stuck here. So it's a gradual thing. And I get the feeling
Enemy
that
Mine.
they...
It's like the movie Enemy Mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling that they probably cut out a couple of Force time sequences to make time, because they went through a lot of growth, more than the conversations they had would have allowed. But the growth of the relationship made a lot of sense.
And it's that private phone call. It's the matter where, you know, she's having a hard time with this grumpy old man.
Yeah.
And he's basically just dealing with a whole lot of BS on the ship. And just, I can't do anything right. I suck. And, you know, it's that moment of, oh, we may not like each other, but we can talk a little bit. And it's a case of I can let the walls down. Mm-hmm. And they're becoming frenemies at that point until eventually, you know, they touch tips.
And that's where the shirtless Force time thing, I think, was the turning point.
Yeah.
Because it made him vulnerable immediately, and you can see when she turns around and sees him, she's completely disarmed.
Yeah.
Like it catches her so off guard that she lets her guard down.
And did that play well for you? Like,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think you saw an immediate change in the way the characters, well, not necessarily saw each other, but the way they viewed each other when that happened.
It humanized him. He was no longer this black monster. He was a scared little boy without a shirt.
And the scars.
Yeah,
The wounds are showing.
and that, like, at least in the novelization, she calls it out in her mind that she like looks at his scars, which is very sad. Like it's played very like in a Florence Nightingale, like I want to take care of your scars kind of way, which is interesting.
In the earlier Force time sequences, she calls him a monster.
Yeah,
because that's how she saw him. And this is, monsters don't look weak. and having
Yeah.
these big scars, despite being jacked and having the Marine build still, that makes him, it takes him from being a monster and makes him into a person who is suffering.
Yeah, and he is suffering, I think is the point. And this
Yeah.
all culminates in the most amazing fight sequence / scene leading up to that, with all of that stress in the Red Room, which is very
The planetarium.
the planetarium. Like, anybody who's in Calgary locally will know what James is talking about. But what I appreciate about the Red Room itself is that it's Snoke is wearing his pajamas. He's wearing slippers. It actually calls it out in the visual dictionary.
He's wearing his gold lame robe.
Gold lame robe and slippers, because he's in so much pain that he basically needs to wear his pajamas as the leader of the First Order. But like, it is Snoke's boudoir in a way. Like, it's his like private chambers.
It's his special place.
It's his special place, and it's red, which is like, you know, synonymous with passion and lust in a lot of ways. And that fight is very much them connecting, like, through, you know, the Force, etc., and knowing where each other are and being partners.
They are very much in sync in that fight.
Yes.
Like the way they act, or the way they move in conjunction with each other, it's like they've been fighting side by side their entire lives.
Yeah.
They really portrayed that beautifully, and I think this is probably the most visually stunning lightsaber fight that has been in any of the Star Wars properties.
I think it's near perfect, actually.
Well, I mean, we'll go to the meta thing. They were connected in the Force, so they did know where each other were at any one time. Like, that's the thing where they say with the Jedis. Yeah, I know, I'm going totally meta.
No, it's just I'm disappointed in myself that I never picked up on that. That their
They
brains
are
are
connected.
literally connected. They've
They
been
are.
pushing this for the last 2 hours, and somehow I missed it.
And that's just in the fight. It's a case of, okay, well, I need to do this, but he's going to be doing that, so that means I can get away with.
Yeah.
And
This.
that entire fight, and that's actually what caused, like, the Red Guard. There was obviously something Jedi-like, if Temple Guard or maybe a Guardian style, but they weren't as connected in the Force, because I'm sorry, that was like, what, 8-on-2?
Yeah, it was 4 pairs of 2. The 2 were meant to be pairs. That goes back to the formation of the Jedi. It's in the visual dictionary. It's really interesting. They refer to something called Jedi Crusaders. I plan on learning more as soon as they tell me what that means.
Watch Rebels.
They don't have Jedi Crusaders in it. They don't actually refer to them. Okay, fine. Sith War stuff. Okay. Are you talking about Malachor?
Yep.
Okay, cool. But hi Liam. What I really loved about that scene was how it started, and then she leans back on him, and he is leaning forward perfectly. They both strike out. She grabs his thigh, which I now have Jason Fry's official Twitter apology for missing that in the book, because to me that was also something for me personally that I felt was amazing, and an amazing add to that fight, just with the choreography, in that she is, as a woman in a fight, as equal as him.
She took a minute to cop a feel.
Well,
And she touched his butt. Butt thigh. Haunch?
when she because they've got the guards coming at them from 2 different directions. He is moving sort of forward but planted, and she is rolling to one side to get the other. She leans back on him. The hand comes down onto the thigh, but it doesn't seem salacious in any means.
No.
It's just that is where she's putting her hand
And
there to
she's-
support and balance herself while she strikes
Yeah.
on that side.
Yeah. And she's not off balancing him by having that more intimate connection.
Yeah, it seemed like the most natural place in the fight situation for that to happen. The fact that he probably had a little whoops happen when it happened, then, you know, that's just a bonus.
In this version, in this like DVD, it feels like she was a little bit more forward than what I saw in the theater.
It's because you've read the book.
It's not in the book.
No, but the stuff that they're going on with the book, we had a chat just before we did the movie run. That was very much they were warm for each other's form.
Well, in the book, Kylo is hungry and he wants.
Here's a Snickers.
No, I mean.
Oh, hi, Ben.
No, he's looking at Rey with hungry eyes, and he's described as a beast in that fight, and that he's just like, and Rey at one part.
It sounds like she was actually reading 50 Rays of Grey.
I mean, it's a red room. That's what I was gonna say. Like, it's got that feeling of a more truthfully interconnected, intimate moment between a man and a woman. And even though it's a fight.
It was their honeymoon, folks.
Kinda.
But then the honeymoon was over. They broke their lightsaber.
Yeah, let's talk about that scene next. So he is all satisfied. She's satisfied.
They've got a bit of a glow going on.
They're breathing pretty hard.
They don't agree that she's like, we should go save the fleet. And he's like,
but
no.
I'm the supreme leader now.
I have all the power. I just, killed my old master, and you've gone away from your old master. There's no reason to keep things as they were. Rule with me, Rey.
Well, and there's also,
Please.
I believe there was a specific line of dialogue saying, let the past die.
Yeah, let the past
which
die.
was the theme of this entire movie, was let the past die and move on without it. But then they're fighting, they're doing the lightsaber tug of war over a lightsaber, which it has been established they both feel ownership towards.
Yes. And if you look at it as the Skywalker dowry, in a way, they just got divorced.
Consider that the divorce.
In a way, right? Like they both reach out for the lightsaber, and they both are able to control it. This is a special weapon, and I feel like it's the one, like it. I don't know. I don't know when Anakin made it. Like which version of it's definitely what he had in Revenge of the Sith, though, right? Did he go through another lightsaber in Clone Wars? I don't remember.
In Clone Wars, no, that was a similar one. But if you go back to Episode 2,
so it's the one he made right after he got together with Padme.
Nope,
because he lost his broken too in the droid factory.
Yeah, he's got destroyed, but he also got one thrown to him, and I can't remember. I think that might have been the one he got in Episode 2. So he may not have made it.
I think he made this one because he was always the type of guy, like even with his own hand, he tinkered with his own hand, and with his Vader suit, he tinkered with his Vader suit.
He was good at fixing things.
So was Rey.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. What's with these protagonists being able to fix anything?
Because the purpose of a hero's journey is to fix what's wrong.
Because if you get caught out in the middle of nowhere and you can't keep yourself going, you'd be Finn.
Because it's
also true.
Because it's a handy plot device that they just, if it works, it works. Keep going back to the well.
These main characters and their skills and their abilities and things like that, but Rey's all feel real, except for a lot of people complain that she learns her force powers too quickly.
The complaint that I've heard a lot, and I actually got into an argument with a friend last weekend about it, was in The Force Awakens, she basically picks up a lightsaber for the first time and goes up against the biggest badass in the universe with a lightsaber and wins. And he was saying, well, that's just completely unrealistic. But I counter that by saying he just got shot by Chewie's bowcaster. He's had a day. He is very injured by the time they finally face each other.
He's already gotten stabbed in the shoulder.
Even Finn, who doesn't, we think, have the Force or access to the Force so much, is able to at least go toe-to-toe with him for a little while.
Yeah, and it's not like she's just some random person off the street picking up a lightsaber and fighting with him.
She's the chosen one.
No, I'm not even going that route.
I am.
She is somebody who you see back on Jakku. We see that she's somebody who has spent pretty much her entire life on her own, having to fight.
Yep.
Like she has had a very violent life where, yes, it wasn't a lightsaber, but she is an expert in melee combat. You see her with her staff taking on multiple opponents and doing it fairly easily and fairly naturally.
Climbs the inside of Star Destroyers.
Yeah. So
every day.
She is in shape. She knows how to swing a weapon. And despite arguments on how a lightsaber would function, and like I say, because a blade made of light would not have any mass, it should be more like epee fighting. The official of it is that
more kendo.
the way the energy spools back on itself gives it the mass of a blade. So I'm sure she has.
I'm giving you geek points for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
she explained it to me a couple months ago, I think.
Wasn't me.
It was somebody.
I've never cared how lightsabers work. They just magically work.
Somebody explained to me that the argument is that the way the energy curls back creates the feel of mass of a regular blade.
Cool.
So she's used to swinging something with mass at an enemy who is swinging something with mass.
Yeah.
It's not just this weak little girl who has never done anything physical before is suddenly fighting against the greatest warrior. No, it's the greatest warrior from Jakku fighting somebody who basically he comes in already having won a lot of his fights just on the strength of his reputation.
Yeah. Well, we don't actually know if he was a very good lightsaber fighter. We don't know if he
He
fought
hasn't exactly
much.
had an opportunity except for kicking his uncle's butt and pulling a.
I mean, maybe.
Well, he
cut
is
down
he
on
is
top of
obviously trained.
Yeah.
He is obviously very competent in
yeah.
a fight. So it's established that he definitely knows his way around it, and he is going to be a serious and successful warrior.
And let's not forget that in Rey, throughout all of the movies, when she wants to, can deep dive into the Force. She can
Yeah.
just let the Force guide her. So, you know,
She becomes this like cool conduit.
yeah, I mean, if you can pause a fight go and have somebody experienced, you know, you give me a sword and you're coaching me in the back saying, okay, his next move is going to be an overhand. So, wow, I just described the Disney Lightsaber Academy. His next one's going to be an overhand, so you raise the sword. The Force is telling her where to put it.
Well, and I am a trained melee fighter. I fought with quarterstaff. I fought with short sword and shield. I fought with greatsword. I took championships. I defended championships. I know my way around handheld weapons. And in The Force Awakens, when she is fighting, before she realizes that she has any pull with the Force, before she has the lightsaber or anything like that, you can tell that Daisy Ridley put in the time to train and get to the point where these weapons are natural in her hand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's somebody who, in a situation, the way that she was presenting herself, going up against another melee fighter, regardless of the exact weapon that's in her hand, is going to be able to hold her own at the very least.
Oh, yeah.
Have then a subconscious, instinctive, strong connection to the Force that allows that to push through and basically supercharge her. Yes, I can see her, with the first time picking up a lightsaber, being able to go toe-to-toe with a grievously injured Kylo Ren and hold her own.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you said, Uncle Chewie shot him in the gut.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about the Kylo Ren and Luke final battle?
Oh, that was more of a, hissy conversation with laser swords. I did like...
Not even real laser swords. One of them wasn't even there.
Mm-hmm.
One of them had been split in half about 10 minutes earlier.
Yes.
I'll go with this one. I love that scene, especially like when he walked out. But that was pretty much right where he could poke Ren to make it hurt. When he walks out and is like, him?
Yeah.
Out of everybody? And then that's exactly it. He is this, the powerful Skywalker blood. He is the everything. He's cocky, and he just, dusts himself off after having everything the First Order can thrown at him. And
Do you think we got him? Such a great line.
And then I like the fact that no, we didn't.
Come at me, bro.
Yeah. And that was pretty much it. And then it's a case of no matter what, he's not fighting back. Now, granted, he couldn't, but still, that wasn't designed to do anything more than keep Kylo occupied and mad.
Can I point something out that's really interesting? Because of Luke Skywalker's choice to visit there incorporeally, Kylo doesn't kill anyone in this movie.
I think Snoke might disagree with that one.
And the Praetorian Guard.
I mean, anybody that's good, quote unquote.
Give me a sec.
Even his own men, with the exception of those people in the room, which, I mean, he's kind of doing it to save his girlfriend, too.
Yeah, I mean, the worst he did was, play pinata with Hux.
Hux took such a beating in
But, like, he doesn't kill any resistance people. He doesn't kill any of his lackeys. He,
By the time he and the bobbleheads get in
nope,
the base.
I'm wrong. I will tell you when he kills somebody. When he spins spinning is a good trick. And then he goes into the hangar and he
blows
launches
up the hangar.
missiles and he blows up the hangar. So he does kill resistance people in this.
Yeah, okay.
But after he starts to connect with Ray was the first one where she was just before that. She shot him. Nope, Ray was after that because he was getting his face fixed because he had his face still with the stitches in his TIE fighter. But after he starts connecting with Ray, he doesn't kill anybody but the Praetorian Guard and Snoke.
He didn't really have a whole lot of opportunities for murder in this one as well.
No, also true. He's unsuccessful in killing off the resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the group that was most successful in killing off the resistance was all of the assorted allies of the resistance.
Yeah, not answering the call. Leia.
They're calling. I just put laundry in.
Sure, I can count. What? No.
The signal's been received at multiple points.
Just click unread. Maybe they won't know we got it.
It's like the rest of the allies have ghosted Leia. That's the worst.
Well, I mean,
They saw it as an unwinnable situation.
Yeah.
There's before the massacre on the way to the planet, there was 400 rebels left.
Mm-hmm. And now there was
4 ships landed.
And
yeah.
well, let's not forget that the First Order just pretty much kneecapped the Galactic Senate. This is the great, powerful, and their planets are all gone.
Mm-hmm.
People are probably still going, like, let's go back to this as hours afterwards. This isn't a case of, like, months and everybody's had a chance to organize and think. These people are going, oh, hell no, they just blew up
A solar system.
Yeah. I'm going to, no.
Those, when you're thinking in the timeline, those bits of those planets are still floating apart.
Yeah. It's still coming apart. We have the last kind of frustrated First Order scene where they invade the base. Ray gets the resistance out. They leave on the Falcon. They have their last Force escape moment where she shuts the door on him.
Yeah, that one I had a bit of a problem with.
Why?
Well, because they established at the beginning that they can't see each other's surroundings. They can only see each other.
I don't know that they could.
They said it.
Can you see my surroundings?
I can only see you.
No, but I don't think that he could.
No.
But then the door wouldn't have made a difference closing it on him.
Sorry, okay. It's the metaphor of her closing the Force connection with him.
Yeah.
We're done. And
Yeah.
she hangs up the
I always
phone.
take it as he needed a timeout, or like, she's walking away from him during a fight.
Maybe, but right now, as far as I was concerned, the moment he just said, "You know what? We're not rescuing your friends.
Yeah.
Let them die."
Yeah.
She's all about her friends, which is love.
So I'm gonna.
Yeah, that's more of a third date move.
I'm gonna say a statement from the novel in her head. So after she sees him, because she wakes up first.
Well, yeah, he's going to be out for about 20 minutes.
She sees him first. She wakes up. She makes sure he has his lightsaber, and she says to herself, Luke's mistake was that his choice had already been made, and my mistake was that thinking that his choice would be easy.
Ooh,
yeah.
Good.
In the novel. And she says, the Force isn't done with you yet, Kylo. Or Ben. Something like that.
Probably
she says
Ben.
like that in her head. It's like, the Force isn't done with you yet. You're still an instrument of the Force. Yeah. So, door open.
Mm-hmm.
In my humble opinion.
Well, and while we're on that scene,
Yes.
she leaves while he's still out, and Hux arrives while he's still out.
Yeah.
And you could see the thought going on there.
I'm gonna shoot you.
Here's my Oh, he's awake.
Oh, and Kylo totally doesn't own it. Hey, like most dark users, they own when they kill their own master, right? Like it's part of.
Well, it's that's a Sith thing. You are now the master.
Yeah.
I don't think goes back to the thing. I think Kylo is still pretty that wasn't I'm ready to take over from you.
Yeah.
This was this is my chance. I don't. He's still a scared little boy. I don't think he felt he could take the big man. He could take the big dog in the fight. So
Yeah.
he waited till the big dog was distracted, and he got his sneaky little move in. And I still think it's the little boy. He may be the big bad in his own little world compared to normal people.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think he's pretty unsure of his own abilities. I think the fact that he needs some people, otherwise, he would have kept choking Hux after, saying that you're in charge. He's like, well, I beat you down. You know, you're a rabid, I'm going to keep you as a rabid cur and I'll just keep you pointed at the other people.
Right. Was there any other scenes that you guys wanted to discuss? Leia Poppins or...
No, I don't talk about Carrie Poppins, sorry.
Carrie Poppins? I liked it. It was fine.
I thought it was good for the fact that she's still a Force user and you could still see that through the movies.
Yeah.
I just felt that was a tad over the top. I'll give you this one. A lot of the scenes for the beauty in the movie, my favorite ones, when the rebel ship turned and jumped to hyperspace through the fleet. Once again, we're going to go with the ugly until it's beautiful again. That was the lighting on that. It was just basically something
lack of sound.
Yeah, and it was just
that moment.
It was a shot of a trash field at that point, but wow.
But it was gorgeous.
Yeah. There's a lot of ugly until it's beautiful, as you just said. Yeah, in this movie, and I'm trying to think of what my favorite scene in the movie was. I really did like that ship scene. I also really like the visual of Kylo and the stormtroopers marching into the base on Crate.
Mm-hmm.
Just the overhead shot. It visually synced up very well with episode 3 with Anakin marching on the Jedi Temple.
Very much. They were in the same formation.
Yeah.
For me, the opening sequence with the yes, I'll hold. Just General Hugs.
General Hugs.
I've got an important message from you from General Leia. It's about your mother.
Yeah.
And then showing pretty much putting it in your face that Poe is Force sensitive just by the way he's able to pilot through in a way that no other pilot could. And then what actually I think was my favorite quarter second of the entire movie is when Snoke appears on the giant hologram to Hux. And before Hux manages to say anything, just mashes him face first into the floor.
You know what, though?
And it was so violent. That was the most violent part of the movie, was his face hitting that deck.
I'll give you this, because we started out with this. We weren't sure why he was so pasty. Think about this. This guy just lost the biggest, baddest weapon the universe has ever known to a handful of little fighters. He is now trying to catch those guys who just got away. Or, if he doesn't do this, Daddy's going to call and Daddy's going to be PO'd at me. And he's well, no, that's just it. And it's like that one scene where he's like, yes, he's probably calling to congratulate us. Yeah. And he's about he looks like he's pacey, but he looks like he's about to throw up at some point.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
He's got some stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. He needs a massage.
All right, I got to ask you guys this one then. We've discussed the favorite scenes. What was, if you could pick one or two things about this movie that you did not like? Because we know that there's a lot of hate out there, and I've said this before. Most of the stuff people didn't like, I agree with.
It wasn't a perfect movie. It was a very good movie, but it was by no means perfect.
Yeah. Well, I'll start out with this one. My big thing I had a problem with in this entire one was it's obvious that they had to do some edits to try to shrink it down for time. And in the commentary, they say that. I think in some cases they did too many hard cuts, scenes seemed a little too rushed for me, and transitions were a little too jittery, if you get what I mean. It's like we said with Ben and Ray, they're suddenly going from I'm going to try to shoot you to BFFs a little too quickly. Canto Bight, the transition and why they had to go there. I agree with everything from the plot point. How they did it. I mean, I've got costumes.
Seemed pressured.
Well, I mean, I've got costumes with less strapping and glue attached to them than that scene.
It's like sticky tape, right? Like how it's glued together.
We need to get it in there. I'm certain if it they were saying it was like the original edit was about 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, it was 4.5 hours. The original edit.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's a lot smoother because the scenes that they did very well.
Right.
But I think it's a case of they got to the point where we need to keep it. We can't cut anything else. Mm-hmm. And that's what made it. That I agree with why they did it. It's just the end effect. It did feel a lot too choppy, and some of the stuff seemed a little bit disjointed for me.
So for my part, I agree with you about the choppiness. I actually feel like in The Force Awakens, they did more of the classic Star Wars swipes and cuts between scenes where they would swipe or do the I forget what the classic film term for it is, but it is a swipe where they use the like pan,
they sweep across the
right?
screen, or
And they
do
did a
the iris.
few of those, but they cut more directly, which felt less Star Warsy. It's still a super Star Wars movie, but it missed that like je ne sais quoi that people just have gotten used to seeing in Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
I didn't like DJ at all. I didn't like him at all. I appreciate Benicio del Toro and his acting. I felt like that was a good character, but I didn't think that
He wasn't needed. He felt like he was tacked on.
Yeah.
it felt weird. It felt weird. I didn't think that he needed to be in the movie. They could have figured out a different way to get on the ship.
Well, and also having it be Benicio del Toro. I'm not saying anything against him as an actor, but he's a big name. He is a major star. And when his character first shows up, you see Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
Whereas most of these actors you haven't really seen in a whole lot. You might say, "Oh, maybe is that person from that film?" But
Yeah.
But for the most part, when you see a character in a Star Wars movie, they're that character because you don't really identify them with anything else. And with him, it was Benicio del Toro with a stutter.
In a movie where everybody is a real person, it's kind of dirty, it's kind of gritty. They all have flaws.
He seemed weird.
He was a bit bigger than life. He was a lot over the top, and that just made him stick out even more
Yeah.
than just being, Benicio del Toro.
For my other point that I want to make, and as much as I complain about the weirdly animated monsters in the middle of all of the modern still Star Wars movies, so Borgullet and the Rakthars and the Faviers, there is literally a weirdly animated or hand puppeted monster in every Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm.
In Empire Strikes Back, you have the weird monster that comes out of the asteroid that tries to grab, which is literally like a sock puppet.
It's a hand.
It's a sock puppet.
Yeah.
In A New Hope, you have the monster in the garbage trash compactor.
We have the entire cantina scene,
Right?
Which is an
Let's just
eyeball
go.
on a stick.
Yeah.
Well, let's go over the top. I mean, you've got the entire cantina scene. That
Well,
looked like
I mean,
something
they're-
out of.
But at least they were like...
They could be characters.
They could be characters, right? I don't know.
Well, I'm going to go with what Lucas said. He said it looked like something out of Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but it was just that scene was a little too.
Like, people that complain about that, which I make fun of, but that's part of Star Wars. We just have better technology to make those crazy creatures that are over the top. And in Return of the Jedi, we have the fight with Rancor, yeah, which was like a puppet. So
It was a stop motion puppet.
a stop motion puppet, which was even, and we had, giant Jabba, which, I mean, Jabba was done more successfully, but the Rancor sometimes looks super weird.
Well, the thing, even as a little kid, with the bits with the Rancor, when it grabs the pig guard guy,
Yeah.
and goes to eat him, and it opens its mouth really wide to bite his head off, and you can clearly see that there is no opening in that mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, that's Star Wars. Like, we have that in every movie. We have weird monster.
Well, and it's space.
It's space, yeah. But that's become Star Wars, so I don't complain about that. I don't know what did I not like about this movie? It was so Star Warsy for me. It felt like what I never knew I wanted about Star Wars.
Like I said, I can agree with most of the complaints people have about it. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
They are a valid dislike. They are issues. They would be an individual issue. But I like this movie. I
love
enjoyed
this
it.
movie.
It's not my top 5.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, that bar is pretty high to get in.
So recently, I should probably ask you first. You go first, and then I'll talk about my new theory of Star Wars.
For things I didn't like.
Yeah.
Most of the problems that I had stemmed from the Canto Bight sequence, that when I first watched the movie in theater, that entire sequence seemed like it wasn't necessary to me. Mm-hmm. Thinking about it afterwards, I saw that was Finn's hero's journey, and him going from being basically, I'm just trying to escape and be safe, to being okay, I'm going to fight for this side. I'm realizing what's going on. But it was so much more than it needed to be, and everything there seemed kind of forced. The fact that the whole getting chased down and thrown in jail and attacked was over a parking violation, to the point that when they're being arrested, the guard says, "We are arresting you for a parking violation," while violently arresting them and then blowing up their ship.
I know, it just seems really extreme.
And the monkey dog horses that they escape
the
on
Faviers.
It's like you said, are we ready for a poorly animated riding escape sequence now?
Yeah, it literally was like that time, and it happened.
Yeah, and it was kind of badly done. You could see that it almost had to feel like they didn't want to do it, but they felt they had to do it. It was like all the extra little bits that were crammed into Avengers 2. Right. You could tell they didn't want to have to do those, but the studio made them.
Yeah.
And I did not entirely buy the reasoning behind the slow chase throughout. It was just...
Yeah, it was really slow. It seemed slow.
It seemed a little contrived to me. And one thing that I had brought up a few times while we were watching it was there could have been so many problems within the rebel group that would have been fixed by a single line of dialogue from one of the characters.
I felt like it might have been a more interesting choice to make it more of a Battlestar Galactica internal struggle to the rebellion, where we got to see that a little bit with Poe's rebellion, but a little bit more where you find out that there's actually a spy on there, and then they're trying to find that spy, and it's all like internal.
That's episode 9. Let's not spoil it for people.
But even if Holdo had said, when Poe is basically grilling her about why she's doing what she's doing, and she is just smugly refusing to tell him, which I can understand because this guy is kind of an ass and she needs to establish dominance more or less. But if they had the line of dialogue of either they seem to be able to track us through hyperspace, we think there might be a mole on board or a spy on board. Okay, that has now explained why you're not laying out the plan to all of the underlings, and then they can move forward and work together. Or even, don't worry, I have a plan.
Leia would have wanted it this way.
It was Leia's plan originally. Leia has a plan. She's communicated it to us. A few of us are in the know, but for right now, we're playing it close to the chest.
But one or two sentences, and they could have avoided so many problems. They could have avoided another hour of movie, which I can understand not having those because they needed that strife in order to advance the plot, but it kind of took away from the believability of it.
I think Poe might still have acted the way he did. I still think he might have acted the way he did because he was so egotistical. And if he had, knowing, leadership has a plan, it makes him seem worse. So,
but he's stepping up and basically saying, you're screwing up. You're just flying by the seat of your pants. You don't have our best interest in mind. If they had
that's
said,
the opening scene of the movie.
Yeah. But if they had said something about, like, just communicated, they can track us through hyperspace. That's what's making it difficult to escape. We're working on it. Okay. Done. Let's go get a parking ticket.
Let's go get a parking ticket. Exactly. So I want to kind of clarify, because in the last couple of weeks, there's been these like, what is your list of Star Wars movies? And as you just said, it's not in my top 5. My favorite Star Wars movie is the one that I am currently watching.
I thought we were doing a podcast. You got something going on that iPad?
No, but like anyone that I want to watch at that any time, and I really don't. Even Attack of the Clones, I can watch and enjoy.
I was gonna say, mine isn't my favorite if I'm currently watching 2 or 3.
I like each movie individually, and I would say that probably the movie that I've watched the most is Return of the Jedi. but that's just because it's been with me the longest.
I'd say my heart says that Empire is my favorite. My brain says that Rogue One is my favorite.
I'll go with my top 5 sort of changes around a little bit, but I will go with my absolute favorite. It tends to vary between Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Then it's going to I'll call that the number 1 spot. Then number 3 goes to definitely Rogue One. Like Liam said, it's, it really should beat them, but I'm sorry, they have seniority.
The heart wants what the heart wants. Yeah. Just ask Kylo and Rey.
And then we're going
Whereas Rogue One is a very different.
It told me that they knew what they were doing. Well, it told me they knew what they were doing in the Star Wars universe, because that was a story in the Star Wars universe, not part of the Skywalker line.
Yeah.
Well, and Force Awakens kind of had me worried. It was a good movie, but it was really a rehashing. So it had me a little bit worried about what Star Wars was going to be going forward. And Rogue One is basically saying, yeah, you've got the reins. I am going to go into any further Star Wars movie optimistic from that point forward.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to Solo. This movie, because I went in, for a while I really thought that Rey was Luke's daughter. Like after TFA, I was like, that's the signs, isn't it? Isn't that the signs? I read them that way. And that was my own interpretation of it. What I love about The Last Jedi, and why it's probably in my top 3 currently, because that shifts, deal with it, is that it made me think more about narrative and about what was trying to be said, and also whether my presumptions were actually correct. And if you can walk away from a movie that you're still thinking about and ruminating and like processing weeks later, like that's a really good movie. Well, and still was visually beautiful and told a good story.
That was a couple of years ago, but I still remember you messaged me going, "Can we talk about this? I need somebody I can talk to without spoilers."
I know. I'm not screaming at the sky trying to understand it, but I'm like, what was the point? Like, I experienced cognitive dissonance with what I thought I wanted out of that movie and what it gave me. And I feel like I'm a better Star Wars fan for having watched it.
You have to stop and go, did I enjoy that? Wasn't what I was expecting, but I had fun.
It felt good when I was watching, but was it like Star Wars has to live up to 40 years of history, 41 years of history. It has to live up to that with every single piece of property that it puts out. And it has zero safety net, i.e. previous stories that it can draw on, with the exception of Legends, which they are doing very sparingly.
And they also have to contend with a fan base who will turn on them on a dime.
Well, a good chunk of them will turn on them no matter what they do.
Oh yeah, they go in pre-hating it.
There's an amazing tweet to Ryan Johnson that I read just in the comments of something that he was posting, and it was somebody who was like trying to pick on Ryan Johnson, and they were talking about how The Last Jedi was the worst movie and it ruined Star Wars for him. That's why he refuses to see it.
Yeah. I hate this so much, I don't need to know anything about it.
Like that is like the definition of ignorance with regards to
it's the definition of rabid fanboy.
But I
don't know anything about it, but I hate it.
But it's just that this is a property that is so precious and so close to a lot of people's hearts that they want it to be what they have already interpreted it to be for them. And anything new that's coming out, if it doesn't fit with that internal narrative, it feels like a betrayal.
Yeah, and they've got their expectation set that it's supposed to do certain things and it's supposed to make them feel like they're 8 years old again. But nothing can make you feel like you're 8 years old again. So you have to almost view it from, blank slate. Walk in not expecting anything and let it amaze you, like this movie did for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're a parent too, and I mean, one of my favorite things coming into Force Awakens, way back when, was when the trailer came out, and I got the moment to actually, the big trailer reveal, and I got to sit there with my son on my lap, and we watched it on the computer screen, and I got to see his reaction to it because he was like, because that scene, like. Say what you will, that scene where those X-Wings come in over the water and they're kicking up the spray, his jaw dropped, my jaw dropped, and that was the moment when I suddenly realized this is something I'm going to have with my son for the rest of my life. So don't screw it up.
You've heard that, Lucas. Yeah, no, and as a parent, having Rey, having Jyn, having strong female characters, there was 4 strong female characters in this movie that I can show my daughter and be like, yeah, you want to hold a lightsaber? It was always my big complaint about the original trilogy when we found out that Leia was force sensitive. It's like, when does she get her lightsaber? And she never does. But
she seems like more of a gun person anyway.
Oh, totally. And she's a politician, which they shoot you in the back. They don't shoot you in the front.
Well, no, it's just those are cool and all, but I've got other stuff to do, so blam.
Yeah, it's just wasting time. Exactly. But I, whenever I would pretend to be Leia when I was a kid, because there was literally one girl, and then Mon Mothma, who was in there for like 3 seconds. One girl growing up. You guys got enough boys. So any last thoughts before wrapping up this?
I'm going to try to make it to see this in the double digits before the end of the weekend. I'm definitely going to watch it again. But I think I might just do I think I might try the one with just the musical or the audio, or without the actual audio tracks, just the musical. So I think that might actually be cool to watch. I also want to watch it again with my son, because he enjoyed it. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to watching with my kids as well and reviewing it. And I'm also looking forward to watching that musical only, which just the amazing music of John Williams without any dialogue or sound effects or anything like that. Very classic silent film in a way. Okay.
The one was, it was Commander Daisy that I referred to as Toucan Sam at the beginning. Who I think... I just have to give some credit out there. Amanda Lawrence, who I'm sure is listening to this show.
I'm sure.
Positive. Of every character in this entire movie, Commander Daisy is the one that comes out of it the best.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't do anything wrong throughout. She is loyal to her cause. She is shown to be in control and powerful. It's basically her and the Broom Kid they're the 2 shining stars of this movie for me.
They don't mess up anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, you missed Broom Kid. Broom Kid was a strong male character. He makes the right choice, and then he gets to be a Jedi in the end.
Yeah, but he speaks gibberish to his friends. So.
No, that was the other kid. Broom Kid was just listening patiently for his friend who's speaking gibberish.
Man, that kid grew out his nose. He could be pretty powerful.
That's the power, right? Is growing out your nose. All right. So, James, where can they find you?
Well, anybody who wants to come out to Calgary Expo in a couple of weeks, probably once this launches, I will be with the bald guy working at the 501st booth. And if you don't see a bald guy, look for somebody in armor. That might be me. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter or Facebook, Gull's Armory on Facebook, and at Skullflare on Twitter.
Nice. Liam?
If you want to find me at the Calgary Expo, coming up in a couple of weeks, for the most part, I will be in the photo ops section. So if you're getting your picture taken with one of the celebrity guests, there's probably about a 1 in 6 chance that it's going to be me taking the picture. Probably on the Friday evening, I am going to be stepping away from that, getting a cameraman and going around the expo and doing a jumbo video version of my podcast, A Story Not Forgotten, where I'll be going around and having people tell their favorite convention story and recording that into a big compilation episode. So think of something, because I'll definitely be coming past the 501st.
Fangirling over my Dalek.
Oh, John Barrowman is such a great guy. You can find me at on Facebook at A Story Not Forgotten for my podcast, and you can also find it at capturinglegacies.com. And for my other personal works, for which mostly photography these years, you can find me at trathoriginals.com.
Nice. Thank you.
And on Facebook, it's Trath Originals.
You do things.
I do things.
You do the things. This has been a discussion of The Last Jedi And this has been What the Force. You can find us at WT Force Show on Twitter or whattheforce.ca. Thank you for listening. And if you feel like continuing the conversation, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter and start a conversation. Cheers.